All right. Hey, everybody. Stephen Wallman from Wallman's Apothecary with another fantastic interview on understanding CBD. And today's topic is I don't know if it's a controversial one, but we're talking about black market cannabis, clean cannabis, and new regulations. We have a fantastic guest on today. I'm going to bring him on right now. This is Colin Fraser from Upling. Nice to see you, Colin. How are you today, buddy?
Doing well, doing well. How about yourself, Steve?
Great, great. So Colin and I met. It seems like forever ago, but maybe been a year or so. And Colin is a local expert in cannabis here in the Baltimore, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, and has been involved in cannabis for quite some time before even regulations came in. And now he started a business to help create better relationships with consumers and access to really clean sources of cannabis versus the black market. Tell us a little bit about your company before we get started here, Colin.
Definitely. So we are the only licensed cannabis delivery app within the state of Maryland right now. So we're fully licensed. We can transport up to 7,000 pounds of cannabis at a time. Not to say anybody's ordering that much within our app right now, or they need to, right? But we're a fully functional app. We have a driver's app and a customer app. So think of it as the DoorDash of cannabis delivery. You can download the app from the Apple Store, from the Apple Play Store, the Google Store. You'll download it, and you'll be able to find product for some of your finest dispensaries or shops like Steve here, and be able to get your product and have it delivered the same day. So that's a little bit about our company. It's a pleasure to be on this platform here with you.
Yeah, it's cool, man. And your perspective is unique because now you have a business app that you can technically you're in the tech space. You got an app that's on the phone. You can I think you did a great job at describing it. Now, before this, let's just take a rewind back to before Maryland had a program. What was it like for people? And I know the black market still exists. Can you give us a little bit of insight in what it's like in this area in DC, what the black market's like for cannabis?
Man, I mean, for the black market, it's crazy because it's just crazy to think because I once at one time used to be in it as well too, with me being a returning citizen, um, coming from cannabis charges or whatever, from doing it illegally to now being able to transport cannabis legally with a license. And back in the day, illegally, you don't know what you're carrying, right? You don't know the source where it's coming from. Back in the day, everything was big on Arizona, right? Either Arizona or on the West Coast or even down in Mexico where it comes from. And there's no way to really know actually what you're putting in your body. And I think nowadays, since the demand is so great and so high that you have people smoking a lot of nitrogen in it to beef up the buds or whatever to get high, right? And I think the time has changed, especially with the education piece. Is not all about getting so zooted that you can't even function throughout the day, right? You have your terpenes, you have the taste of it, you have different notes in it. If you're really a consumer of it, that I think matters more than just getting high out your brain, that you can't really function from your day-to-day things. So I think that's what's really changed from back then the black market to coming into the licensed market here now. That the different states are trying to do what they can to do to make sure it's regulated, that people ingest clean products that not only make you feel good but can actually heal you as well too.
Yeah, it's a great perspective on it, and it's good to hear from you, and that you've been really serving the patients because I believe all cannabis uses for medicinal purposes, and you've been serving patients for a while, and the way you were able to transition.
Legally and illegally.
Yeah, legally and illegally. And I appreciate you being open with us because, look, I mean, it's been, all of our life, most of our lifetime where it has been illegal. I was a consumer of cannabis and, you never even consumed cannabis. You're from the business side and being a facilitator there. So, being able to make that transition from the illegal market or illicit market to a legal market and being a leader in that is pretty cool, man. So I kudos on that. And I'll probably ask you some questions about entrepreneurship as well. so the the patients, the people that are accessing cannabis, because the black market still exists. There's still people that are purchasing cannabis off the street. Do you have any insight or comments to people that may be shopping based on price? Because it's like, I know when I was in Annapolis and we're talking about with the regulators there, and it's not even just in Maryland, but they're talking about comparing the price between. It's like competing with the street. So they have to, and they're looking from a dollar's perspective. They're like, well, what's the price of an eighth on the street versus a price of an eighth in our dispensary? And we want to make sure that we're competitive. And besides price, it's sort of an awkward discussion when you're talking about medicine.
And I think it comes from more so the educational piece, and that's something you do a great job of, Steve, with just being able to educate the patients, even non-patients, on what you're consuming, right? For me, it's super daunting, right? Because it's like, here's a product, just want to push it so you could get it. But I want you to understand why you're consuming, right? So you could come back and say, okay, this makes a difference, so let me try this. I think that's the biggest thing is educating. Shout out to March for Equity. This is an event that was held at Howard University, where we brought in panels and we talked about this, everything from the farming to the business to the consumption. One thing that stuck out to me, there was a young man there that said, look, the reason why I don't go into the dispensaries is cheaper on the street, right? Than going into the dispensaries. I think the average in Maryland, I think it's like $12 to $14 a gram, right? Of course, in the street, it runs probably like $7 a gram or what have you. And so they made an analogy. The panelists said, look, if anybody's familiar with Four Loko or even Everclear, right? Everclear is like considered gasoline of alcohol, right? You can't consume that every day and expect to have a long lifespan. You know what I mean? So think about it as consuming a type of Everclear or Four Loko. You can't consume it every day. It'll literally kill you, And I've had a colleague of mine where they're in DC on the way to getting their licensing. And they said just last week, a mother and a daughter died from consuming bad cannabis that was laced with something. And there's no way you could trace that, right? To say, oh, this is the street dealer or this is the shop or whatever the case may be, because once they ingest it, there's no tag or whatever the case may be. There's a whole bunch of generic bags going around and you really don't know. They name it whatever, like Shooby Doo-Wop, and it's got 46 THC in it or whatever, and it's going to be the best thing you ever tried. And that's the education part of it, from the street level. But I think one thing that's happening in the dispensaries is that there's an education piece. And another shout out to Nurse Consulting by Ashley. What she does is go into the dispensaries and actually consult with and she's a certified nurse, and actually walks them through what the different terpenes are and what it could do for you, what it could do for you as a health standpoint. Because you have you have your bud tenders who are pretty knowledgeable. They say this will help for backs and aches and pains and etc. But she takes it a step further. And I think that's always key. And I think that's one thing that attracted me, Steve, to your business is that we met at the mansion at one of the MJ Connect. Shout out to Terrell as well too, where you showed me like one of your cancer patients had used the roll-on and this is what it did, and then you had the lab tested paper that showed what was in your product. And I thought that was pretty impressive that you took the time to spend the 5-10 minutes to explain to me versus just pushing a product into my hand. And we at Upling, we do the same thing too, where when we go out to events, shout out to the Caribbean Festival, June 3rd at Bladensburg Waterfront. Come out, see Upling. Steve will be there as well too. But if you want to know some knowledge on just what to consume or what to use for certain problems in your life, I think this is the perfect place to sit and chat with us and have a conversation. Because like you talked about earlier, Steve, I think it's about building our relationship, right? Times where getting after COVID, we kind of lost that relationship because everybody was locked into the house, and now all these new businesses are flourishing. I think it's a due diligence for us as business owners, right? To form that relationship with you, to give you the best product or give you the best service that's going to help you.
Yeah, it's that focus on the long term. versus, I know a lot of the street or black market. It's just a short term, it's just a quick turn
You
and
know.
flip so you can get the money. And,
Mhm.
and when it's illegal, it's hard to think long term, because you're living day to day, and
Mhm.
having an entity, an incorporation. You're incorporated, you're paying taxes, and you're looking at building a business, maintaining competition, beating competition, building new customers, building these long-term relationships. If you're just churning and burning, it's exhausting, and you really,
Yes.
it's constantly just bringing in new business, and it's leaving out the back end. So yeah, I thanks for recognizing that, because that's our approach, and it's worth it. I was in a meeting yesterday with a dispensary, and he was concerned. He's like, what am I going to do about testing all these CBD products now? The regulations are
Mhm.
changing. We need to have everything tested. I said, dude, I've been testing everything for the whole way through. I have a QR code on the
Excellent.
bottle, so that's important, and I'm glad that it's starting to be, required now, and
Mhm.
we look forward to getting safer products out there on the marketplace.
And
Um,
it's accountability, you know. So
yeah,
I think that's the
absolutely.
biggest
So,
thing
yeah,
that
so if
you're
something does
accountable
go
for.
wrong, because we
Mhm.
still test for the requirements that you're testing for: pesticides, heavy metals, any mold, mildew in the product, any residual solvents if
Mhm.
it's an extract type of product. So you're looking for anything that can be harmful,
Mhm.
because, like you mentioned, like cannabis is, a natural plant, is healthy and good for you, but if you have too much nitrogen, or you have other additives that are
Mhm.
used through the process, pesticides, it can kill you.
Yeah.
So it's not cannabis, but it's those things that come along with it. So thanks for saying that too. And you're working with dispensaries, and you help them deliver successfully to their customers. Do you have an idea about how much people like to shop for cannabis in the store versus get it delivered?
Man, I want to say everybody, right? Just because I'm biased to my company, but I have some customers where literally they have a page on their phone where it's Instacart, Drizzy. They don't leave their house unless it's worth it for them, right? You have people who have businesses who literally work for 12 hours out the day. They really can't afford to go here and there. Um, just this week, we delivered to a vet who was at the National Cannabis Festival where, she didn't have the ability to go, and we were able to make delivery for her. And it was just, such a breath of fresh air. She didn't have to go in, especially with disabled vets or even older patients where they're just not able to get into it. So our demographic ranges from young to old, but if I had to put a number on it, I would say quite honestly, 8 out of 10 people like to have their cannabis delivered, right? Thanks for the platform, because our job is to get Upling out there to as much people as possible, consumers, even those who are just kind of curious as well too, to try to bring those services to your doorstep, right? Because who wouldn't want to sit there, finish your Call of Duty, and then press pause and order a pre-roll and have it come to your door and still have your game going on. But as much as a leisure it is to have the convenience of delivery, I think also just being able to say, well, you could have a reliable source, right? That's licensed, that you could go from an actual licensed dealer, which is a dispensary, and have actually a licensed transportation company and bring it to your house. I mean, we do it with Amazon all day, so people live on Amazon, live and die by Amazon. So being able to have that same feature within the app to do this for cannabis or CBD products, edibles, carts, I think we do a service to Maryland, to DC and Virginia.
Yeah, you have a good selection on your app as well. The other question is, so we talked about clean cannabis, and obviously
Mhm.
getting it to the door safely is the other thing. Like Amazon has a truck, and it says Amazon on the side. I don't know if I want the truck to say I got weed on in here.
Right. But we're not allowed to though.
Okay,
So,
tell me
and
about
that's the
that.
whole thing with regulations too, right? So you have some dispensaries who do that, right? And when we first set up to do the license, you have to submit like a SOP saying the things you can and can't do. So like we're not allowed to have any kind of labeling on our vehicle saying, this is us, or we're delivering weed or whatever. Not only that, but then safety wise, right? So one thing you'll see in our app, like within DoorDash, you'll be able to see where your driver is and how far they're away. We took that feature out. We just have a step by step. So you know when it's been ordered, you know when it's on the way, you know it's closest to you, just for that. Also, too, we don't take any cash whatsoever, just to make sure that we protect our drivers and protect the patrons as well, too. So that there's not any, well, let me come and intercept this, we want the money and all that kind of stuff like that. So that's one thing. I think safety is one of our biggest priority, right? Safety is our biggest priority, and making sure that we give that quality service where you can get your product in a timely manner and you actually get the product that you ordered. So,
All right, cool. I have two more questions for you, and then I can let you go. One is for your business. Now, are you licensed in Maryland, or where can people um, use your app? What states?
so we could use it in Maryland, DC, Virginia. Not so much Virginia. Virginia's kind of a gray area. We're still working through that. We're actually available in Colorado. So anybody out there in Colorado working with Mana out there in Colorado, uh, New Jersey, we have a pending license, and then also we're doing delivery in New York as well too. Then if you're going overseas now, we have delivery with Jamaica as well too. So we're working with a dispensary called Jacana. You can order from them, and then we're soon on board in Kaya Herb House in Ocho Rios. So if you guys are in Jamaica,
Nice.
you're at the resort, you're for the family, you don't want to go do an excursion to the dispensary, like the tagline says, we could bring the dispensary to your doorstep.
That's great. Now, so you work so as a business. So let's get into the business side of it.
Mhm.
So for business relationships for you, the people that you're looking for is it dispensary owners? Do you talk typically with the owners? Is it a general manager? Um,
So we need a decision maker,
yeah.
somebody who's able to say we love this, and to be totally transparent. Let me just put it out there. That's been the hardest thing, Steve, is to build that relationship with the dispensary owner, right? So you get through the door, we talk to the bud tender, and like the buck would stop there. They'd be like, I don't know, we don't need you guys, and then that's it. Sometimes you may even talk to a manager that have 3 or 4 things going on, they really don't understand, and then the buck might drop there. So like, yeah, general manager, but then building those relationships where we go to these events, we're able to meet some of the owners or somebody up on a higher level to even just give us a shot, because I can't imagine how you would lose out. Right now, we have over 5,000 people on the app. So we're bringing in revenue to your shop from people who may not necessarily order from you, or they're just in a different area code and they want to experience your dispensary. So between that, but then one thing we've been hitting the customers really hard. So we've been going to a lot of different events and just letting the customers hear, we're here for you. We're going to give you the best experience for delivery. We want to bring that experience of the dispensary to your doorstep. I don't know if you could really mimic that, but just that kind, quick service, right? Because I
Mhm.
know my experience, when you go into a dispensary, you still have to check in, you're in a waiting area, and then you get called back depending on how many people are back there. But God forbid if there's another pandemic or what have you, you can't go out, what are you going to do, right? So we're kind of that fail switch that's here today, tomorrow, and in the present.
So I know I talked to one dispensary owner that was not going to use an app. They wanted to try it on their own, and they spent a ton of money building the app or trying to build some app where consumers would do it through their website. They got it set up. They had a truck that was marked, and like the first week it was out, they got into a situation on the road, and I don't know the details of it, but it was enough for them to kill it and stop doing it.
Wow.
Because there's a danger to it, and if you don't
Of
do it
course.
right, like you said, like you would think, like, oh, you'd want the consumer to have a good quality of service so they can track where their order
Right.
is. But when you know that the guy's driving with yours and probably other people's product in
Mhm.
it, it doesn't create a secure situation. So, what are some of the, I guess sounds like the challenge is not even telling your story. It's just really getting in front of the right people to tell the story. Because once they do, it's like you're driving traffic to their store. You have 5,000 people, and I see you at all these events. So you're doing your part to, promote this brand to consumers, and I think that helps to drive drive the story home.
Yeah, thanks. And I think the biggest thing, like I mentioned before, is the safety, right?
Hmm.
Safety for our drivers, our company, also to the consumer too, because I can't even imagine Something happened when we're actually making the transaction and somebody thinks that's the most vulnerable way to, get access to somebody's house, somebody's money, or somebody's product. So
Hmm.
that's one thing that we do take pride in. And I really have to give a big shout out to the Compliance 71 chaps, because that's where we got a lot of our data. And we heard some of the horror stories that were happening to them by doing it on that gray area where, they were getting robbed, and, people were getting, were in danger of these things, and they couldn't really run to the police and say, hey, they stole my weed, from my business. And they go, well, what business do you have? It's illegal. Everybody's getting locked up. So,
Hmm.
we got a lot of data from them. We learned from a lot from their mistakes, and we put a lot of fail switches in there to make sure that we have the highest quality of safety for our drivers, number one, and then for our consumers as well too.
Yeah. So, and the dispensaries, they don't have to invest up front in building an app because you've already built the app. They just have to sign in.
We did that
You have an agreement, and they're away. They're running. They're up and running quickly too. It's
very quick. Yeah.
not a long process. All right. The other thing, last question I wanted to ask you, Colin, from a business perspective, and I know that there's a lot of people that have been around cannabis in the black market or whatever, and have been playing in cannabis for a long time, and they want to get a shot in this new regulated business. It's been my vision and my understanding of it. It's like a lot of times, like with the gold rush, it wasn't people that were actually selling the gold, it was the pickaxes and shovels as an
Mm-hmm.
accessory. Do you have any advice for someone that wants to get into the cannabis business without going into getting a license to actually be a grow operation? Because it's a lot more difficult, especially starting a new business. If you're in business now and you're running another industry, like we see a lot of people running commercial industry, commercial real estate, because they're used to putting pro formas together and complex
Mm-hmm.
business transactions, and bringing in cannabis might be less of a heavy lift for them. But if you're just starting out in business, it's a very risky business to get into. It's a new industry. You're going to have a roller coaster ride. There's a lot of federal hoops to run through.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for people that want to start a business in cannabis, but something that might be approachable to everyone?
I think Steve, you said the right thing. We're just so one thing I'm going to say, to one word: solution. You got to have a solution to this cannabis market, right? I don't think there's a shortage of cannabis anywhere, right? Storefronts, I don't think there's a shortage of it. So, like what you said about the gold rush with the picks, right? That's an essential problem. Is that you have this big rush, and everybody's not going to be able to have a pick to go and mine, right? So when you same thing like Tesla, you may not be able to compete with Tesla, but hey, why not look at the batteries that go in there? Look at the windows. Try to manufacture the smaller things that go into this component that helps make the whole ship run, right? Um, and to follow some of your strengths, right? Like sometimes this is not for everybody. If you don't grow, I don't think you should be growing. Like if you're good at policies or what have you, and going forth and helping people like in the community, I think that's super huge. So like for our business, we get back into the community. We do food drives. We deliver food to elderly who have nothing to do with cannabis, right? Um, we employ returning citizens. We go into the prisons and help them and give them the business knowledge to get in it. So there are things that they need programs for these states to help educate. But my thing is, if you can't figure out where the problem is in this whole chain of cannabis and this green rush, then you're going to be wasting your time trying to figure out the new way of um, doing something new, And for our company, we got started right when COVID kind of finished. So the problem was getting access to product, right? Now it's not so much of a problem, but it's more of a convenience, right? So we're running the wave of the convenience side where there was a problem. And I think there's always going to be a problem sometimes when people getting from point A to point B, whether they don't have transportation or they can't get to a certain area, or they don't have the ability to get up and go somewhere. But you have to identify your problem. If there's not a problem and where you want to go, please do not waste your time. You may want to come up with something innovative, yes, but you got to find out where your solution is going to be to that problem.
That's good advice. That's good advice because, being in cannabis, and I've had my a cannabis business, not only understanding CBD radio show and producing content, but the CBD business. It's not the gold rush that you may think it is on the outside. There's opportunity, but there's opportunity in all other areas. So if you're entrepreneurial, look for problems that you can deliver solutions to. And if it's in
Exactly.
cannabis, great. But if it's not in your sweet spot, don't try to start from scratch because it is a hard road. Well,
Totally.
thanks for coming in today, Colin. You
Thank
inspire
you.
me with your hard work, and I'll see you. I think it's next weekend. It's already coming
Yeah.
up June 3rd. Where's that again?
Blacksburg
You want to talk
waterfront.
about that?
Yeah, Bladensburg Waterfront. We're having June is Caribbean Heritage Month, so we're having a big Caribbean festival there. Bring your family out, face painting. You have dancing. We have a boat ride down to Anacostia. It's a free event. It's at the park. We have ample parking if you get there early. We have numerous food vendors, arts and craft. Upling will be there, so you can get a chance to understand the business more. Download the app. We have some free swag we're giving away, so come through when you show us that you downloaded the app. You can even use this by time next week as well too. So check us out in the App Store. Check us out Google Play. If you want to drive with us, go on to www.uplingapp.com. And thanks a lot for the opportunity to come and just speak about the things that we need to show attention to, especially with the black market, and just kind of elevating small businesses that are doing the right thing.
Yep, that's awesome. Thanks, Colin. And hopefully you'll join us again. We want to definitely get
Definitely.
an update on what's going on with your business as adult use is now in your primary market in Maryland is turning July
Definitely.
1st. So I definitely want to get an update with you and see what's happening there. But we'll catch up soon. Thanks again, buddy. I appreciate
No
it.
wait.
And
No problem.
thanks everybody
Thanks.
for listening. If you liked anything you heard on here, give us a thumbs up, a like, a share. Get it in the hands of people that really could benefit from it. So I really appreciate it.